What an unusual sound. It is impossible not to say or at least think this conclusion after some time listening to this self-titled debut of this North American project. Although the voice suggests, and it is a very subtle suggestion, something death metal, what you have is far from the aforementioned genre of extreme music. The keyboards give it a slightly psychedelic air, a strand that we would not associate with music. The groove, however, is really the aspect that jumps to the ear from beginning to end, and it's not something that sounds bad. The point is that the voice sounds out of place with the music itself. A different musical approach and we would have a different result. Being the first album, nothing like evolving from here.
Return of this Finnish project idealized by drummer Mirka Rantanen and which had a good impact when it debuted in 2021. Melodic hard rock where each song has a different vocalist, with illustrious guests such as Mark Bowles, Mr. Lordi, Jeff Scott Soto, Rafael Castillo among many others. If the fact of using different vocalists in each song could make the music sound too scattered to feel like an album, and that partially happens here, what also happens is that each of the songs does not escape hard rock and the voices, although different, all go in that direction, managing to sound in the end well cohesive. Which may come as a surprise to the more skeptical.
Immortal's chaotic journey is nothing short of interesting. Lineup changes, breakups, hiatuses, comebacks, court cases, all things that slowed down and delayed what fans wanted most, new music. There were even times when it was doubtful that we would ever get new music from the band. After a competent Northern Chaos Gods, and another court case, finally comes War Against All, the first Immortal album to have M.U.S.I. as the only member, having used session musicians to record his vision. And that vision, is it what we expected? Yes, but that's not strange since M.U.S.I. has always been present, in one way or another in the music Immortal was making. Maybe it's not as bombastic as the second phase of his career, where he only contributed lyrics, but it keeps the elements of balance between second-wave black metal and more traditional heavy metal elements. Sometimes you don't have to be bombastic, just do what you do well. That's what you get on War Against All.
Peculiar name for this band that comes to us from the Basque Country, Spain. As we are big fans of instrumental music, we were obviously interested in hearing their music, and despite the modern and genty tone of their music, we were not disappointed. There's a very unique ambience to his music that manages to create an atmosphere that even though we don't know it's not unique, it still sounds special. The ability to create those atmospheres and still manage to sound furious and intense. If the modern factor could induce the lack of dynamics, they exist, and in generous quantity, mainly by the additional arrangements beyond the trio guitars, bass and drums. Especially in when the saxophone comes into play. For those who like guitar-driven instrumental music, but don't mind going outside the box, recommended.
It didn't take long to get a new album from the Norwegians Bolverk. And that's good because the good impressions left with the debut War left us with healthy expectations regarding the sequel. With more accurate riffs but maintaining the mix between the technical tone and a certain pagan feeling without this translating into riffs that identify as anything Viking. Which is still refreshing. This courage in not pursuing the easy route and still ensuring good results is rewarded with an album that has an unusual sound and still manages to sound catchy. It's not for everyone.
It's only when you're faced with works like this Mississippi that you realize how hard rock, though associated with the American scene of the 1980s, is a worldwide and eternal movement. The Austrians may be based in the middle of Europe, but they have the feeling of classic hard rock running through their veins. This fifth album brings that sleazy groove like we're in the 80s, but without smelling musty or anything like that. Fun, brave guitars and choruses that stick to your head without giving a chance. We'd expect nothing less.
As you may already know if you follow our work, we don't usually review singles. Unless it's an almost 20-minute single, of course. Malcolm Galloway of Hats Off Gentlemen It's Adequate has already accustomed us in his solo work to bring us fantastic pieces of atmosphere soaked with progressive rock, and this long Metazoa one goes precisely in that direction. Its excellence is such that the duration even seems to be short, and when the song ends, there is that feeling of emptiness, as if we were not, and we are not, prepared to face its end. To all fans of excellent ambience, this is a must-see.
One of the most brilliant and unique doom metal bands at the most illustrious festival of heavy and alternative music. A junction that only makes us automatically interested, even though it may sound short at first. There are only 4 songs that appear here, 4 songs taken from the most recent work of originals, but that take on a whole new dimension thanks to the participation of additional guests/instruments that embark these themes through folk territories that are assumed as precious and musical diversions that enchant us with a frightening ease. The weight and melancholy are still here, but with an approach that makes everything even more passionate. Mandatory.